Zambia. And he's going to explain to us what he means by farmer by day, builder by night. Is this right?
Yes.
Okay. Take it away, Ismail.
So have you ever just saw a seedling growing through like barren soil and just wondered, these baobab trees? And you know something about grandmothers? They know how to love you with food. All of us have a piece of fruit or delicacy that reminds you of love. So every time I go to see her, she'll have this ready for me. But one day she told me something that I haven't stopped thinking about. She told me my son, we used to call her mom. She told me my son, let me tell you something about baobab trees. The tree doesn't bear fruit for the farmer who planted the tree. To this day, I think about that. So today, I want to challenge you guys on how we think about transformation and legacy. The cliches about farmers, they tell you a barren soil, you add fertilizer, nurturing. We've all heard that. How many times do we see farming from a perspective of not what the farmer benefits from? And there's something that you intertwine between a farmer and a builder. Take a second and look at that picture and tell me what you see. I see patience. I see precision. I see a young man who is laying a foundation of a house that he will never live in. If it's Africa, he's probably too poor for his children to find comfort in that shelter. But look at the level and how he's making sure that bubble stays in the middle. That level is that young man's character. He is building something on an honor system, not for him, but without knowing who is going to live in that house. The next thing you're going to see is us in this room. As individuals, I mentioned, we're stars. All of us, if you look at that picture, you think you're big, strong, and mighty. The one stick is bigger than the bundle. Have you ever seen a stick start taking blows? Something. That was me last year while I was going through the program. We had our tea studios 2 days after the government closed my building, but we still had the tea studio. I was in Accra when the legislature was determining whether my business model will survive. I was still in Accra. It wasn't the same when I was there. But in that room, I was with my tribe. That's when I realized that me, as I am, the body keeps the score. I won't make it. But me with a tribe, I could take more blows. What keeps us together is what we benefited from. Sometimes it's our family members. Some of us have kids. We are the string that keeps our family together. Our coaches and our networks bring us together because I talked about this concept of pooled interdependence. Africa needs to transition from I am to we are. I am is me. We are is a fist. But that's still not complete. Because we are, we're great. Stanford, everybody's going on our LinkedIn, and they're proud of us. But for who? That's the missing part. For who are we building for? It can be for us. The greatest tragedy in Africa is this concept of legacy. We see legacy as Dr. Ismail Abaji inaugurated this 500-kilometer road that stays there forever. My family will be proud. But the citizens of our continent still can't live to afford a vehicle. Just think about it for a second. How do we reprogram who we are as leaders? How do we ignite the minds of individuals to transition beyond I am to we are, but for who? How do we start thinking about poverty reduction and transition to prosperity creation? The first word you think of when you hear poverty reduction is poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa has never been poor. Our ancestors in Botswana were not poor when they digged on their soil and found diamonds. Our ancestors in Nigeria were not poor when from their soils they find oil. Our ancestors in Accra, Ghana were not poor when gold at some point was devaluing currencies entire world. We're not poor, we've never been poor. We built poor systems. We've cultivated poor habits. We've chosen poor leaders. Leaders that have never paid rent. And you know something about rent? If you see in my shirt, everybody sees Muhammad Ali. I'm intentional in what I wear. Most people think about him as a boxer. That's what he did. It wasn't who he was. He once said a quote, and I want you to take that with you. He says, service to others is rent that you pay for your home on earth. Service to others is rent that you pay for your home on earth, your purpose. What is our purpose? You know something about my grandmother? She died 2 years after I moved back to Gambia in 1994, at the age of 56 years old, from diabetes and hypertension. It took me becoming an adult to realize that it's not normal for a 56-year-old grandmother to die from diabetes and hypertension, when almost over 10% of Japan's population is over the age of 80. That's when I realized, for who? For me. Oftentimes it's a combination of pain of the past and promise of the future. So legacy is not about me, ladies and gentlemen. Legacy is not about how great we are going to be as a collective. Who are we doing it for? That's what I want to leave you with. Thank you so much.
Let's give Ismail another round of applause.
Yes.
To wealth in a way and focus on the 10-year-old African. That's really the shift, and which is why it's for who, it's for them. So if my son is 9 months old, poverty reduction should not be something he thinks about. But when he grows up, I tell him, hey, let me call Uncle Daniel. I know a guy in Uganda. Go to Uganda at 7, at 6, and then you see that Africa is one. So I think that we becomes more regional because I'm in Southern Africa for the first time in my life, and I'm ashamed because my passport is full of all these countries in the world, but Stanford allowed me to travel, and I've traveled more in Africa over the past 2 years because of Seed than 39 years of life. So that is the we. And how many of us are intentional about making sure our kids, my daughter is 7, she's gonna start traveling to Botswana, she's coming to Kenya, she may go to school in Ethiopia. Yeah. So how we now becomes from 2.5 million in Gambia to over 1 billion people, and that's the critical mass. But we have to choose our heart. We also have to choose our heart. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Meaning, it'll be harder for us now, but it should be easier for everybody else behind us. But also, we have to engage beyond just our small circles, because most of our systems are bad because most of our entrepreneurs also don't see a role in public discourse. They're not driving policy. We're building from a very protective and self-preservation way. So it's just also reflection. I think a lot of it has to do with reflection as well. And it's not small impact. I always use Gambia, for example. There's hundreds and thousands of doctors of pharmacy in the USA. Gambia population 2.5 million people, there are not more than 10 doctors of pharmacy. So Walgreens does not miss me. But if you remove me out of Gambia, there's a huge vacuum. So you can't underestimate impact in that way. And my revenue right now is probably lower than most people in the company, but I know that I'm not building for now, it's for the future. And now a lot of us that are hyphens, because I spent half of my life in the USA, I'm a dual citizen, will have the courage because I stayed and endured the hard now, and then we reach our critical mass. Because also most of our human capital is not on the continent. We're struggling finding talent. People are outside, so we also need to call the Avengers to come back to the continent. But its impact is not small, and it's not measured by balance sheets, which is why fundraising will be hard for companies like ours. Small market with all the problems of Africa, most investors are not going to invest. But we have to choose our heart and just endure. And because I know you, you know me, I know everybody else, it's a buffer.
It's also happening globally, actually, with what is happening in America. But the question I have for you is, you keep on talking about legacy and succession. So I wanted to know what you're putting in place now to ensure that Innovax lives after you. I know you're still young, but I know that you're deliberate about it. So I just wanted you to share what you're doing now.
Yeah, I can tell you personally that I'm working on my exit. The company has been in operation for 5 years, but I started the journey in 2015. So I've had this curse, this whisper from God for 10 years that I've been grappling with. So I've started having a succession plan now to find a female CEO over the next 2 years. And not only leave Innovax, but start building again. And I think once a farmer I don't like to be defined as a healthcare professional. That's where my journey began. But I want to build again. So it may not be in the service business, for example, but guess what? My next vision, go into manufacturing of pharmaceuticals. Because I know 100% of the medications in Gambia are imported, right? So whenever there's a drug supply chain, it affects me. So I think the building does not continue, but Innovax should outlive me. And I think part of it from a regulation standpoint, I think a lot of us entrepreneurs should also have the courage to build in public, to fail in public, because we underestimate what social capital does for us. I survived last year because of social capital, not because of political influence. Because so many people's mothers depended on medications being at their doorsteps every 28 days. When I was closed for 12 hours, even the head of the country realized that that cannot happen. So we also have to have the courage of building in public and telling our story. Because regulations are set by people. Those people are elected by people. So we can't sit as entrepreneurs and you don't have to fight the system, but you have to also participate in the system because our success is tied to regulation in Africa, for better or for worse. And some of us, when we're successful and tired of public practice, let's go into politics, let's go into legislature, and really be advocates for each other. It has to be part of the plan. I would probably give a different answer. I think we're doing a really good job as a community in measuring how many companies are doing business with each other. I think a new metric that we need to measure is how many companies are merging together to play the 1 billion people game. And I think we have to be very intentional about some of our companies coming together to be one big company for Africa and go and play the 2 billion people game. And I think that's always a missing link because it's nice for us to say, let's do business together. But if going back to I am, we are, for who, if multiple companies have the same for who, a very intentional conversation should be happening around, is there a pathway to merge and become one company and then have the support of the ecosystem from access to capital, coaching resources to build a lot of 100-year companies that started as a small company in Gambia that merged with a company in Kenya and Nigeria and now are playing the 2 billion people game. That's what I would say.
Last question here.